what happened in the last 10,000 years is something very specific. And the aliens hint in my story that humans were given a time to evolve. So we have our planet, and then there's like layers of dimensions right on top of the planet. And there appears to be other layers. And the aliens are originating from one of those layers. It's too big, right? This information, as I say it, someone out there listening is lost. They're confused and they're lost because the information is just so advanced. But I'm convinced it to be all real. The phenomenon wanted an end game, but needed help. Because when the aliens show up, and that's what I'm convinced there's actually going to be a moment. And I've always known the aliens can't be here until they alter the world, they alter the planet. So there was always this idea that they were not coming down. And I don't think humans will see them. We won't see them. I'm not convinced of it until after the change has occurred.
Welcome to Under the Owl Tree. Today we have our first experiencer guest with us, Jeff Selver. His story of contact started in December of 1997. Jeff experienced the Rising, in which an agreement with aliens to discover his soul. This was an intense consciousness-raising event, coupled with a genetic activation. The Rising required him to take a leap of faith, sell his possessions, and begin a life traveling from place to place. What unfolds is a truly epic adventure of removal from society, chance meetings with people, and living close to nature, and all which having contact events with aliens without his knowing. Jeff had over 26 contact events with aliens and told in amazing detail, spread out between the years of 1993 and 2017 in his book, The Rising, the alien plan to build an enlightened city on Earth. Besides of his many amazing encounters, which we'll go over today in this episode, Jeff is also a good friend and someone we've had previously on our podcast, Cosmic Convergence. Links are down below to this episode if you want to check them out. And yeah, so thank you again, Jeff, for joining me today on Under the Owl Tree. It's great seeing you, my friend, and looking forward to getting into the different details of your amazing life experiences with the Greys.
Yeah, Daniel, thanks for having me, buddy. I really appreciate it. And congratulations on your podcast. So I think it's very warranted, and really hoping and looking forward to you getting a big subscriber base and lots of people coming to you for knowledge on the phenomenon. So
appreciate that. Yeah, same for you, Jeff, and all of your amazing channel. If anybody, again, all the links will be down below. Please check out Jeff Selver's channel. He has amazing content that he's always putting out. You're always busy with the phenomenon, so it's great.
Yeah, like us all, the way it interacts with us. So yeah, it's fantastic. So yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Well, to get kind of the listeners and watchers up to date, kind of where you are, and I know you're a very active experiencer, but what your experiences were starting off with them, what the Rising was, and go into a little bit more detail with that.
Yeah, you actually laid it out fairly decently in the intro there. So it started in 1993 when I was 16 years old. Yeah, and I made an agreement with gray aliens to discover my soul. It still sounds bonkers to say. And just doesn't, it's not normalized at all. And so it's very extreme. It's a lot of detail, but the bottom line is I saw the afterlife. And I didn't just see the afterlife, I was transformed into something. So I was turned into an orb, and it was like this pure energy state of just what consciousness is, which is something much higher than what we are as we walk around in our daily life. And so I was transformed by this witnessing of this afterlife. And I basically, it's not just also observing the afterlife, I was put on some type of level where I could observe it. So I was kind of like raised up in this energy form and had a shared experience watching the death of my last life as it goes into the afterlife, and then this 16-year-old who's watching it transformed is having a shared experience with the oversoul. And then I get kind of dumped out and I'm altered. I'm transformed. I'm not scared of the aliens ever at that point. The fear of them has been wiped out. My identity's been wiped out, and I have been transformed into quote unquote one of theirs. So that's kind of how it's framed. I'm one of theirs, and I felt like I was bonded to them. They said I had their DNA, so that starts the relationship. And then they began hiding or stashing away the awareness, and so what progressed was kind of a plan on their behalf to have me, quote unquote, discover my soul. Now, I was just a hapless victim. Really, technically, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but it all had a natural feeling of I was doing the right thing. And so, basically the first 7 contact events are a variety of things occurring. They tell me a bit about who they are, and then they end up working on, quote unquote, this other me that they had been able to store away in this kind of bizarre way. I have gone into a lot of detail about what I think how they did that, but and then eventually 1997 rolls around, and there is a very distinct event that changes my life. That was always a part of my life, not knowing it had alien contact was associated with it. And I have gone into detail about that on my channel, some detail in my book. So basically I'm triggered, if you will, by a book that I read that seems to flush in this extreme awareness that alters my identity. I was in 1997, so I read this book, and my inner identity, that's kind of the way I want to frame it, because it's so hard to articulate. It was combined with God awareness, but some type of energy was in me, or some type of extreme energy was in me that would snap out in hypnagogic states. So I would be driving or playing music or walking or something like that, and I would have these glances of these massive awarenesses, if that's a word. And it was combined with a message to leave my life. And once I resisted it. Once I committed to it, I began seeing orbs and objects in the sky. Now, what was happening was contact was occurring with me, and the biologic or the consciousness event altered my body. I had one of the defining moments is having seen the cells in my body have light in them. As you mentioned, a genetic activation, some type of gene activation was involved here. And that made me valuable, obviously, to the aliens. Once the memories are all out, that's what's obvious. And so there's a lot of biological events in the year 1998, and they continued to tell me more about themselves. So there is a defining contact event that I call number 10. It's in the summer of 1998. And they start telling me they're making a new human, and they kind of give some reason about why they're doing that. And then, the 1998 is the bulk of it, but the contact continues periodically in 1999 and then 2000. They kind of facilitate me out of traveling, where I met my to-be wife. And then throughout, as an adult, there's very periodic contact. So 2001, 2008, 2016 and 2017, and that's it. So it's like 4 as an adult, but then this kind of bulk that occurred in my youth, and those ones as an adult, they're capping off the knowledge about their agenda or about what they plan on doing. So they tell me quite a bit. And then the 2016 contact event, which I call my 25th, is them telling me, tell your world we're coming and there will be a new city. And basically the hybrids that I'd seen in my contact event, they're showing me, the elder is showing me, this alien I interacted with is showing me that the hybrids I had interacted with in my contact will be a part of this new city. So something like that's the gist of the summarized version of what happened there. So, and then 2019 is when it all kind of blew out for me, and the orbs came back, the objects I had interacted with traveling came back, and the memories kind of emerged. And for those who don't know, this is nothing I'm whimming up on the top of my head right now, as it's all laid out in a book for a reason, because everything's documented. So that's the point of mentioning the book. And how I got the memories and all the contact events are all laid out in detail in the book for those who don't know that part. So
one thing I did want to kind of dive into just briefly was, a lot of people assume that when we have contact that I saw UFOs as a kid and I was aware of them and I kind of had this thing going on my whole life. And often we find that there seems to be this weird activation point in their lives. And then you kind of realize that you've had all these other interactions that have been hidden away.
Right.
Can you go into more details about that, kind of them hiding that from you? Like, do you think that is more of a widespread thing with a lot of contactees or experiencers, and we're kind of like in a certain human role, or have you, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. This whole the whole memory game is very fascinating, and I was really drawn into it because of what happened to me. So the nature of the rising, this consciousness event that happened to me, was so fundamentally weird and unique. How the hell could they? How could the aliens be involved in such a weird event? How could they trigger something so extreme, a consciousness alteration, from just simply reading a book and having the right words kind of initiate this awareness in me? It made no sense to me. But when all the memories were exposed, it was clear they had done it. It was clear that that there were weird linkages. There were certain effects I'd experienced as a 16-year-old on craft that were linked up to what happened in 1997. But it's 4 years apart. It was 1993 was that 16-year-old contact event, and 1997 was the triggering. So what the hell, right? It actually kind of makes no sense. And so I spent a lot of energy for my own sake, not for nothing else, not to say I'm super cool. I have these theories. It was largely because I was so disturbed, actually, even years in after the memory was exposed. How the hell did they do this? How did they do it to me? Because it happened to me. And you know, I'm a pretty big practitioner of meditation, and I kind of, maybe you can say, discovered that, you know, they're coming from another realm. And there is a kind of like frequency or a feeling of their vibration in their world. And when you don't have access to that in one part of your mind, which, you know, if they can facilitate a means with which they can effectively obscure this awareness of the contact, then you have trouble accessing or imagining what it feels like to be in their world. So they have a weird way of like sealing up. So even though you're actually watching a UFO, you have no knowledge you've been inside one. It's a strange game where you can literally witness a UFO and be like, wow, I can't believe I'm watching a UFO for the first time. I had that here. I was 2019, and it was 2017. Me and my spouse were out on my deck, and we saw a metallic orb. And I'm literally saying to myself, that's the first time I've ever seen a UFO. Not knowing I had all this prior contact and seen UFOs up close when the memories are exposed. So there's the weird, like, it didn't trigger me. There was no activation. There was no triggering. And I needed the feeling of what it felt like to be in front of their presence, the way they kind of envelop you. And there's a vibe. There's a feeling that the identity of who I was, the linear track of Jeff Selver, who's in contact with the aliens. So what ends up forming is an identity. So it's much more complex. Like, it's really hard to piece together. And the comparable thing I try to bring awareness to is past life awareness. It's exactly the same. If anyone's ever delved into past life awareness, you can get glimpses of things you feel have occurred, but you really struggle getting the entire life track, like a real memories track of the individual who lived that in that past life. And the reason is for the same reason. There is a linear track of awareness of that identity. And if you don't have an ability to know the childhood or the baby age or the teenage years of that other life, you really struggle to gain the accurate full picture of awareness of that past life. So the physics matched my experience of past life awareness, and it's clear to me all these years later that the aliens know all this. They understand how to seal up memory. They understand. I'm pretty certain this is all part of the consciousness computer systems that the craft actually are. That they know how to seal it up. They know how to bury awareness. They know how to leave triggers. They know how to leave a tiny flash of a memory, so you're left with a marker, but you can't ever put it together. I'm pretty certain a consciousness computer is aware of how you're perceiving the contact and knows how to seal it all up. And so then when it comes to triggers, I'm actually convinced all these years later that they facilitate that. And they kind of see contact from the future, from a future angle, a future perspective. And for me, there's no doubt that was the case anyway, I could keep talking about it because it's so fascinating for me. But I'll just hint that I knew all these years later, it's weird to me how the second contact event I have in 1997 is the trigger point. And I can see now how they designed it to be that. It's the only contact event with the screen memory. So they knew in 2019, or at some point anyway in the future, that was going, the 1997 contact event is going to be the trigger point. It's like, what the hell, right? Like, who's building this, right? I'm convinced it's the leader species, because this is a level of intellectual, knowledge about how to handle human consciousness way beyond anything we could even begin to grasp. And so that's kind of a long-winded answer, but it's because I was really affected by it. But it's really fascinating. It's the way that they've kind of sealed things up, and I really would wish I could give, advice to other experiencers on how to kind of unravel their triggers, but it really does seem governed. And I'm really convinced that, the relationship we have with the phenomenon, even in present, even if you had some kind of contact, but you don't have those memories, I would just encourage that relationship then. So there's a fellow experiencer who has emailed me recently, and he was talking about how the aliens are giving him his memories back, but he didn't really know all the memories, but he still had the current relationship with them. So I think that's what I kind of like recommend, is still nurture that relationship, but the triggers are there, and the memories will come when they're supposed to.
Right, when they're supposed to. And I agree and 100% align with that of this ongoing relationship, because it's not just about us uncovering our past, but what is it doing to our present? How are we evolving along with them? Hence why the weird timey-wimey stuff that goes on with, them being able to almost put these like little elements in our previous, in our past, and knowing that it's going to connect to things in the future. Synchronistic work that we have ongoing with them, but to our perspective, it's just random. One of the things like I wanted to go a little bit more into with that also was they were unlocking obviously parts of yourself, helping you understand not just your connection with them, but your human soul. But they were also showing what they're going to eventually be doing with, quote, the new human.
Yeah.
So when you talk about when they showed you that vision, I believe that was in chapter 18, where you were interacting with the scientist, Gray. Can you go more specifics about that? And then also, is there any new revelations you have with on that whole subject of the new human, what they're kind of cultivating with us?
In general, so the 10th contact event occurred in 1998. It was I have a new kind of angle of how I see all this, very cyclical. So the rising occurred to me in 1997, kind of December, January 1997, and by summer they start showing me a different side of them. But it had a very specific timing. It's clear for me now, all these years later, it's mapped out, and they had a very specific plan about what they were doing. And so like midsummer, I basically get taken into a craft. Again, more revelations I have about that contact is it really is the densest of my contact events up to that period. A lot of them I was altered in this kind of consciousness state. This contact event was in time, very physical. And the densest, it's almost like the whole experiment they had done with me was being repressed. So there was this, I basically feel like the 20-year-old in the memories, as dense as it could be, but with awareness of the prior contact events. So the me that knows them. And I get on craft, and there are these, and I'm intimidated. There's these 2 4-foot tall gray aliens, and basically they show me there's a cattle on craft, connecting that they are linked to the cattle mutilations. There's dead humans on craft who I end up learning are exhumed, or at least believe that they are exhumed from graves. So they don't appear to harm them. And I was shocked in the moment. And the aliens basically said, "Oh, we asked for their permission," telling me that there's some type of, way to have a relationship with these entities, or sorry, with bodies outside of the physical. So as if they had kind of asked the spirits for permission. And when I'm in shock, the alien says, "We're making the new human." And I don't know why or what that means. So they send me downstairs into this craft is a massive warehouse. That's the feeling. It's just this huge craft. Now, all these years later, only recently, I'll be doing presentations on my YouTube channel about this. But I just finished reading An Alien Harvest by Linda Moulton Howe, and the link-ups with this 10th contact event are huge with that one book about her investigations into cattle mutilations. So the people very often see football field size crafts associated with cattle mutilations. Well, here I am in my first, I call it a warehouse because it's just absolutely massive, and it's containing all these hybrids. And then the twins, there's only 2 descriptions of the aliens in Linda Moulton Howe's book, An Alien Harvest, of what the aliens look like. And one of them is a T for T description of the twins. I'm stunned. So I'm really looking forward to putting out that information in a new video series I'm bringing together. And it's here in this contact event that they take me downstairs and they show me all these hybrids, kind of in tubes. They're kind of ready to go hybrids, adults. And he says, look, see, we're making the new human. And then it's the dialogue, like, why? Why are you making a new human? And it's largely because, I have to be very careful with my words here, but, I think we're going to learn. Okay, we do know we're getting wind that the aliens have been here the entire time. And, but what does that mean? And maybe they've been kind of trying to facilitate or change us or change our direction, and haven't been successful. And then they are stuck with a scenario here where the aliens don't know what to do. So they're kind of putting a new species on the planet. And, there is actually, you asked if there's a new revelation. There is a fascinating connection. Linda points out to it. I was going to send you this book and I didn't. It's called The Cattle Mutilators. And it's written by a mysterious author, made up to be sci-fi, except the aliens come from the planet that I saw, which is the Shadow Planet. And so the author can't be found. There's no biography on the author. It's very disturbing because the description is so to the T. Linda was impressed, and about what's going on in the background. And fundamentally, the aliens describe what they're doing is that they are building hybrids because, so it's weird how the book links up hybridization to cattle mutilations, which is exactly what the 10th contact event is. So weird. Like the crossovers are astounding. And in this book, basically they're describing the reason they're doing it is because for the same reason that the twin describes, that there was, there's a trip up in our human evolution, basically. And so it's called the experiment. We humans were the experiment, and it's kind of gone awry or kind of gone the wrong direction. And so they need to intervene for themselves into the experiment to change its direction. So that is like exactly what the twin said to me. I can't even anyway, so it's kind of like disturbing while simultaneously be shocking and synchronistic. And so that's the gist of it. The twin is basically describing a scenario here where, humans were given an opportunity here to evolve, and then they need to intervene. And so there's this hybridization program that's kind of involved with that. So the aliens have a way of kind of shocking you first, and that's what this is about. The twin shows me a planet hologram. The Earth goes up into flames, and it's kind of the idea that there's a biosphere problem, and the planet goes up in flames, which is very interesting because that's exactly what's happening now. There's an increase in heat, increase in fire all over the world, and then the gray alien mind dominates. So eventually the planet is reformed, and there's a giant city sitting in the center of North America. Anyway, so it's pretty shocking in the moment. And then we go back upstairs beside the dead humans, and the twin describes to me more detail. So, there was an issue with our brain, that we had this impulse in us to kind of maybe a desire to separate or to individuate our egos. And so that was developed in your brain on purpose. Now we want the brain to have a more of a collective or unity function. Basically, the alien describes it as the grabbing function of the mind. So there's a desire of the mind to self perpetuate or self, to be interested in the self. And so they're trying to erode that out now with this new human. And and in this dialogue, the alien gives me a lot of detail about they showed up in the 1600s, which is a very weird thing for them to say, and I have some theories about what that really means now. And they showed up in the 1600s, seeing the direction we were going, and they were trying to actually curb us, and they were unsuccessful. So there's these new humans coming in. They show me that God is involved. The consciousness of the craft is linked to God, and that God is involved in this process. So it's a natural process designed to help evolve humans and evolve these species, these gray aliens, and bring us together so we merge together. And then it really did end with a feeling of, humans and gray aliens side by side working together as, family or friends, and an idea that that as generations would move on, we would merge these genetics together in our species. So it really did kind of have a new human, new Earth feeling to it, the whole contact event. So that's the gist of what I can give you there.
Yeah, so it's less about them. Grays are coming in and they're going to take over everything and wipe us out. It's not at all that.
Yeah, it's something that it's stewardship is really how it comes off, right? There is even that cattle mutilators. It's disturbing, while simultaneously, what it's telling you is that they were, aware of the human experiment. And it's not experiment scientific. It's clear that there's some type of evolution that they're aware of. That's what it is. You can't separate out the knowledge of evolution and what that really means for a species. And so they're very aware of that process. And it's much more nuanced about the human soul than I think people realize. Yeah.
Right. And then also us having to go through these phases of learning, and sometimes learning these hard lessons. And that's part of the evolution, not necessarily them just interjecting and saying, hey, you shouldn't make this mistake. Stop. It's about us trying to having to learn from our mistakes. And so I think that's where a lot of people get that confused, where, they just don't care.
Brilliant. Yeah. And this is the grand confusion, is that I think it's kind of a new age mind frame or perspective. Actually, I've seen someone say this before, like, true love is, the way your wife handles you and is very loving and cares and tells you everything. Like, no, dude. like that's not the way. Like, Krishna told Arjuna to kill his cousins, right? Like, the aliens are kind of on the same level as, like, you have to live out your hardship to grow into it. Yeah, there is something where you have to people don't quite understand what the kind of higher love is actually all about. And here's the other one. You put yourself here. So when you suffered all those years as teenagers or a 20-year-old or 30-year-old, you have no one else but to blame but yourself for putting yourself here. So there's a whole, like, the higher realm kind of content is detached actually from the hardship and desires us to grow or learn how to be evolved in it. And that's what real higher awareness is, or higher consciousness is. And this is the level that, from all my experience, I'm aware the aliens are on. They actually do love, they actually do care, but they're very aware that we're in a 3D realm on purpose, and that we are here to evolve. And evolution looks exactly like the tree struggling on the forest floor, fighting with the other trees, trying to get light. And the same time something looks peaceful and beautiful, there's a battle going on. And that's what all of nature shows us. So it's happening with us on the spiritual level as well too. Yeah.
I just think of some of the experiences I've had in my life where they in the moment were very not fun to go through, but looking back in hindsight, helped me grow, helped me give perspective for what was actually meaningful, and other things like that, and versus just saying that event or that experience was just inherently just a negative thing and somehow demonic or whatever. I think that's an important perspective to have, especially interacting with the phenomenon, just as we're trying to get more insight into what's really going on. So interacting with them, how has that changed you as an individual, like on a spiritual level? Like what? I mean, that's a big question to ask, but is there anything that stands out? Yeah.
Well, it's hard, yeah, because since they were there as a child, so they
Yeah,
fundamentally, when they say I am one of theirs, I
it's
feel
been
like
since
I
the
am
beginning.
one of theirs, yeah, and it's really hard
Yeah.
to separate that out. And there has been, I'll give credit here to Susie Hansen's Dual Soul, which is really it is the and for those who don't know Susie Hansen's book, The Dual Soul Connection, she's a contactee. So that whole idea that there's kind of two lives involved, that there's two of you, right? You have perfect, yeah. There you have the you who's aware of the contact, and you kind of develop an identity there, and then there's the you who's living out a normal life, and the aliens may be, obviously aware of these two differences. Eventually, at some point, you have to open up the memories and kind of merge things, but really fundamentally you always kind of have two.
Mm-hmm.
There really is always a kind of a two thing going on. There's a dual thing going on, and it's really hard not to frame it that way. And so that being said, it's really weird because events in my life that were just mysterious, that fundamentally altered me and shaped me as a human, were always linked back to the entities, but they let it come off as my natural world or the world around me. And so yeah, it's really, how has it changed me? Well, I think the best way of framing how it all changed me, how all the whole phenomenon changed me, is I am constantly strained. Because I'm constantly strained. I'm constantly feeling like the reality I'm aware of now is like out here, and my brain is only this big, and so I feel like what the aliens did was separate all that out, so I didn't go crazy, and now I'm at the point where I have enough tools and enough awareness to at least try to make it all work, or try to make it come together. And so I could talk about the spirit part, but it's kind of weird because they just were a part of it all. So as far as like how I'm changed, I would say that I think the bottom line is everything you're trying to do is embody. That's the point. Yeah, everything you're trying to do is embody. When you weren't a spiritual person and you just were your normal self, living out a normal life, thinking that this is all that mattered, you didn't embody ideas of timelessness. You didn't embody past life awareness. You didn't embody ideas that you could remotely view things, or leave your awareness, or project your awareness, or you weren't aware of an expanded sense of self. And when you start embodying those, or start learning about those things, what you're actually doing is you're bringing them into a physical experience. Your physical tissue brain starts kind of creating neurons that start creating space for it. Your DNA slightly changes as you become aware of God, or as you become aware of other expanded abilities. And then just the more you focus on that, the more you bring it in, the more you might be feeling like you're expanding out, but if you make that a continuous part of your life, you just go deeper. You just eventually get better and better and better and better at the experience of timelessness, or the experience of the expanded awareness of God, or the experience of remotely viewing, the experience of intuition. So I think that's how it helped me, because my guru has a really good term, which is the guru is a leverage. So it's like, it's really hard to find your spirit in this world. But when you have a guru, you're able to crack open the mind, the space in the brain that's all of a sudden starts seeing a bit of light. You're like, oh, and you can kind of like just start touching it. And then years in, you get better at that and better at that and better at that. And then all of a sudden there's a space in your mind, or a space in your spirit, or a space in your body that's embodying that spiritual experience and that awareness. And the aliens are nothing but a leverage, right? They're huge leverage, right? Because you're having experiences outside time, or you're seeing your soul. I know tons of contacts who have past life awareness on craft. So that's the aliens are leverages then. But then how do you hold that leverage? How do you embody that leverage? How do you make it a part of your everyday awareness? And so that's what I feel is how they've changed me. Is that they're a leverage. They just keep opening and opening and opening and opening that space, that I just keep delving into it, and I keep getting better at that, keep trying to manage that awareness and make it a part of my life.
I wanted to expand on that, because I think it's really important that for listeners that are hearing this podcast is, as an experiencer, it can be very jarring to have these strange experiences, and at the same time, there's this otherness, but in a very intimate part of it as well, when you do have these experiences and also these different parts that are unlocked in you. And you kind of realize it's like the, it's not that I haven't had these experiences, it's that I forgot about them. It's more so that. And so when people are diving into these very strange spaces and trying to unlock these parts and trying to integrate it into their just general life, it can be very messy, but at the same time, it can be very deeply profound. And us, when you pursue that question or that fear, of that experience, maybe there's a lot of experiencers that are, fearful of a certain event or something. They deep dive into, okay, that made me feel a certain way, but there's something else to there, and then it unlocks like this whole other aspect of their life. It's it's profoundly spiritual. It's profoundly changing. Like you said, it you're as you've been having your experiences in your life, you're still working to integrate them, and they're at that same time they're writing this life with you almost, and as you have more revelation over here, they're unlocking something over here. Or having synchronicities with others that then point towards other synchronicities in your own life, and then you become more aware that you are all of us together are awakening to this kind of web of consciousness that we're all connected with. And so there's this weird, like you often say, this cat and mouse game of that you said leveraging, like this, almost like a lever. They're pushing, pulling us. And so that as the more we talk about it, the more others wake up to their own experiences in their own life that they had no memory of. And, I think as many others that we know that are experiences like Susie or others that have said previously, a lot of experiencers will never be aware of their own contact. And, there's others that are prompted into these spaces to be a spokesperson or write a book or be like a vocal person. But there's others that have other jobs, and they will be important for whatever is, in the future. So anyway, I just wanted to, it is a strange but interesting thing to be awakened to. So I just want to say, Jeff,
strange but interesting.
Thank you for being honest with your own experiences and being willing to deep dive, because it is a lot. And and so for anyone that's listening to this podcast, we totally understand you if you feel this weird in between space, this confusion space of like, I think I saw a craft, but there's something else there. I can feel it. That is very common. So
very common.
Very common. One of the things too, Jeff, I wanted to kind of go into was we've talked about your experiences. So we've talked about the hybrids. We talked about their connection with you. We've talked about the unlocking your soul, your past lives, becoming more aware of your overall awareness, like your multitude of lives, kind of what you've been here for, what your kind of inherent job is now. Can you go into a little bit more details about like the layers or maybe where they've come from? Let's first start off with where they come from, and then also if you want to dive into it all, if you want to spearhead off of that about the crop circle information that you were given, that we kind of had a shared thing, but wherever it goes, that's totally fine. So
the whole picture, eh? Now, this information that I'm about to share with you, and Daniel, I'll just give you, because I love you, buddy. I'll give you my latest that I haven't articulated yet properly on my channel, but I'm going to give you kind of what I think is going on here. Because, okay, so there's two crop circles, and I mentioned it in the video on my channel. There's a whole video there. For those who don't know, it's, I can read a crop circle. And I mentioned two. And it's the year 2009, and there's these weird formations, and they have this kind of weird script to them. And both of them have gray alien faces in the actual crop formation. And one of them I basically link up to a Federation object, like a kind of some type of description of what I saw on Craft as what the aliens showed me as a Federation object. And on the top of the Federation object was basically the consciousness computer system. This computer system is very weird, and it's, I'm convinced it's the top of the entire phenomenon. But so what this one crop formation is telling me is so there's an idea here that here's the point. I don't know what the species that we're dealing with looks like at the top. And I can't say it's gray aliens because I don't know that. I'm actually kind of convinced they may have been using environments to make bodies. Maybe I have a pretty good feeling that I'll eventually lay out all this information, how I got it. I'll put that on my channel. That is what the next batch of videos will be. But right now, I'm pretty convinced that it's a species that's been stopping and starting, that's been trying to make itself work, or trying to make itself figure itself out and kind of live out a normal civilized life. And they originate from somewhere else off planet. And at some point they came here, and they apparently had a path where they inhabited the Mars, and then they inhabited the moon. But were they exactly gray aliens? I don't know that. And I don't know what they actually looked like. And they could have been different type of entities utilizing bodies that matched those planets better. And then at some point they show up here on Earth. And I'm convinced it's here in like the 100,000 year mark, or maybe further, they made the gray alien body, and they made it here, and they're still in this alternate dimension that they're from, but they're using the planets. Now, okay, back up. This nature of reality that I'm convinced we're dealing with is, planetary bodies are in all dimensions, and that's what the video you have there, and it matches what I witnessed, what the aliens showed me. So the aliens showed me where they're from. And the physics behind it is baffling, but the video that you are either going to post in the edit or you're going to talk about is an S4 NASA scientist. And I'm finding tons of information from those who come from S4, Dan Bursich, Bob Lazar, that NASA scientist, Jon Stewart's Alien, the Alien Interview, which is S5 or something. Yeah, that S4. Looks like my aliens. Yeah. Everything coming out of S4 is matching my story, is matching the aliens I'm interacting with. And here's another. Now, we can't verify the source, but AI couldn't verify the source of this guy, and his information just matched to the T my physical experience. So I kind of do believe it to be real. And the picture is, gravitational bodies are in multiple dimensions. So Earth is in another dimension. All these versions of Earth, all these versions of the moon, all these versions of Mars are in basically stacked dimensions.
The presence of alien beings and the technology does exist. It is real as you or me, and it's a whole lot more out there than even the most diehard believers could possibly fathom. The truth is that we, and by we I mean this planet and the people of this planet, are in essence blind to what is really going on in the cosmos and interstellar space. What people call aliens, we call IBs, or in layman's terms, interdimensional beings. And what we found out and have known about since the early 70s is that, in simplest terms, other dimensions or planes, as we call them, exist and lay on top of each other, almost stacked, as if you had a blanket with another blanket stacked on top of it and another blanket stacked on top of it. To explain it so you can understand, you can imagine the Earth and our reality as a thin blanket, and all of these other higher dimensions are the blankets laying directly on top of ours. However, we can only see our own blanket. Now, the alien beings, or the ships that we have seen in videos, and that many people have captured over the years, are in fact what we call jumpers.
So we have our planet, and then there's like layers of dimensions right on top of the planet. And there appears to be other layers. And the aliens are originating from one of those layers. and they have traversed from somewhere outside of the solar system to Mars, to the moon, and then to the Earth. But they're able to move back and forth. That's the trick. So whatever state they're in or whatever technology they're using, they're able to traverse back and forth. Now, this is somehow linked up to this consciousness computer system. And I can't tell who's originating where. I can't even tell if I'm convinced mantids, lizards, gray aliens, men in black, so humanoid looking things, are in fact possibly all originating from a central type of, central consciousness computer system. That, it doesn't mean there's not some type of civilizations, but something is actually centralized into some type of computer system, a consciousness computer system that is self-sentient and aware. And anyway, there's a whole thing I have to say about that. And then that's what's actually creating the idea behind the gray alien species. And the gray alien species is actually designed to be, I'm convinced, a spacesuit that is traversing dimensions, that can live in other dimensions and do different things. And so I'm convinced they were on Earth. From the crop formation information that I have, I'm convinced they were on Earth for a period and were open and we're like Bigfoots, cryptoids. We're basically cryptoid-like, paranormal cryptoid-like entities, which indigenous records show there were weird, small, living entities in our forests that disappeared as the white man approached. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. And so we do have kind of weird tales of the little people and, the elves and all that kind of stuff, as if they were, coming from another realm. And anyway, so there is a feeling for me, a picture for me that what happened in the last 10,000 years is something very specific. And the aliens hint in my story, in my book, that humans were given a time to evolve. And now they don't mention the 10,000 year mark, but again, more information that matches mine. Alec Newold's Coevolution explicitly mentions the 10,000 year mark, or it's like 12,000 years, which would be the Younger Dryas. And that something happened, and that's matching a picture that seems to be accurate for me. That some real cryptoid version of the aliens, the gray alien species, who had bodies, who were now utilizing this type of formation, removed themselves in some kind of larger fashion into this dimensional plane that is linked to Earth, that is and now what is that plane? The idea being is that it's some type of displaced future. It has it's too big, right? This information, as I say it, someone out there listening is lost. They're confused and they're lost because the information is just so advanced. But I'm convinced it to be all real with everything I have. And so we're dealing with a species who is coming from a linked planet Earth that is at a dimension that is actually speeding faster or displaced future. It's some type of in a linear time frame that's different from ours. So then they're able to utilize that future perspective when they do dimensionally hop or they dimensionally come into this realm. And I think that whole thing about them coming from another dimension is a big part of what we're actually dealing with. That sometimes we're not dealing with we're dealing with entities that have traversed that dimensional field, and some type of bodies can do it and some type of bodies can't. And then the consciousness system is able to materialize into our dimension, and that's the orbs we experience, the Chris Bledsoe orbs, my orbs, the drones, the New Jersey drones. I'm convinced there's this consciousness system that has been here the entire time, that has been the Joseph Smith's angels, that is the angel of Fatima. I believe it's all the same thing. That's my belief, and it's linked up to a grander plan of making the planet Earth a place for humans to grow. And so what's happening now is that species, who would we call the gray aliens, is some plan by that consciousness computer system, or mantids who are kind of in the background. I can't quite tell, but there's a plan here to bring them over. And now this species, who's been bouncing around trying to start up their society, the plan has been decided that they're coming here to help with the whole process. And so that's what the whole hybridization thing is that there's a plan here to dump themselves here. And this is a long living species that I'm kind of convinced has been taking multiple forms in multiple different planets, even within our own solar system. And they're coming out of that dimension, and they're putting themselves into our dimension, turning into a full 3D physical hybridized species with this once ancient gray alien body that I'm convinced is linked to our Earth anyway already. So that's why they have the same DNA structure as us and all that kind of stuff. So that's the big picture. For those who don't have trouble following it and think I'm kind of making it up, I will be putting out all the information in a very concerted and articulated way on my channel, but I'm pretty convinced that's the picture we're dealing with.
A little bit of a info dump on that. Just info dump. Yeah. yeah.
But
I appreciate you sharing the little tidbits on the channel. I really do. So they're coming here from a different reality, and this is something that people have been talking about now in the news and other, for years now with David Grush and others, that they're interdimensional. So I think that is really just we're becoming more accepting of that they're coming from elsewhere. We also know, a lot of paranormal experiences happen with people, or they're taken, missing time, other things like that. That's been throughout our history. So that really doesn't necessarily point to green men from Mars, but interdimensional activity, or at least, and we know from mythos when it comes to tribal peoples and, wisdom keepers that there are dimensional portals and other things that they're able to come through. And I 100% believe all of those accounts. So I think it's important that we keep everything like that in mind. Them bringing themselves here. Do you think that this has been a long-standing push by the military, because they know that they've been told the plan and they've been told by the NHI, like, hey, this is happening, so you guys need to get with the picture or not? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there is a this Cattle Mutilator's book hit the nail on the head. It's man, I gotta show it to you. I'll show it to you eventually. I'm probably gonna buy it.
You need to send it to me.
Yeah, it's dude, and then the script from Linda that she pointed out, bang on. The description was bang on, and there was a very specific line that answers the grander picture about what I think is going on here. So, and it matches just, what they said to me in my contact. It's just this kind of grand picture. So it looks to me like the phenomenon told, I'm convinced there was almost like choices. How the human species moves about forward with this, with a future perspective that America would become the dominant power on the planet. So then they're interacting with America very early on, and I'm now researching the UFO crashes, UFO not just crash retrievals, but the UFO crashes and kind of the descriptions that occurred there and what information is there. I'm reading Ryan Wood's Magic Eyes Only, very good, well researched, and it's hard not to separate that a lot of them happened in America. And if they happened at other places, America got a hold of them. And though you do have crashes occurring in other countries, the majority, oddly enough, were happening in America. And no one really believes that it was a radio wave that brought UFOs down. That doesn't make any sense. And the Colonel course was the day after Roswell. We took that information on how to handle UFOs. Sorry, we took the technology and turned them into our own. And it's clear. I mean, for me, it's clear that the aliens were doing that on purpose, that they were kind of evolving us, right? They're pushing the evolution, specifically with a specific region. So that way that region could grow up and maybe be a leader to this. And at some point, there's a communication. So is that the Eisenhower meeting? I don't know. But again, we have a 1947 doc that shows the realm the aliens are from, and it matched what the aliens showed me personally. So I believe that communication was obviously there at some point, some type of communication. Now, the aliens can also be mysterious. So were they communicating clearly like a human, or were they actually being still very mysterious about their agenda or what they're actually planning on doing? Bottom line, from all the information I have now, all my research, the government definitely, for me, knew the entire picture, everything, even this computer system. there's information from me that they knew what the three body problem, and using Richard Bissell, who ran S4 in the 1960s, who understood the three body problem. Then you understand this computer system, this orb system that's around us now that we can draw. So you know in the 60s what the hell the phenomenon actually was and why it was coming here. So there's a bunch of, and I have new information that matches Richard Bissell's now. So I'll go into that again in my YouTube channel. But the picture forming is that they knew all the details. Now, why would they keep it from us? Well, in that cattle mutilator's book is the answer. That the phenomenon prefers stability until it's time to end the experiment. Ooh, boy. So, and it looks to me like there were two choices. You tell them and that two choices matches the contactees, Jim Sparks and both Alec Newold, and kind of my own as well too, that it was kind of a one or the other. Either you give them everything, you tell humans everything, we are the gods of the past, we made you, this is the nature of reality, like everything, we dump it on your entire population, and that's the way it goes. Or we do a version where we keep everything stable and you slowly help us by giving out this information and changing the human's perspective, because there's definitely evidence that they did that too, right? We have a lot of evidence, right, from that they were putting this information out into the public in some form, right? ET, you could say, or the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, actually having a version of Jacques Vallée in the story, right? An actual version of Jalen Hynek in the story, and they were actually, consultants for the movie. And now we have Disclosure Day. You're having a consistency, and not just that. You could say Star Trek, which sometimes does have reflections of the contact phenomenon, stuff like that. I think were actually designed to help us move us forward, and at some point it looks like there was a change in that. The government decided to, maybe the Dick Cheney era is the way I like to frame it, is there's an era where they wanted to get more aggressive against the entities in the 90s, and that's when you have the crabwood crop circle, which gives us the message of, conduit closing, like there's a warning, and that now we can say that crop circle is definitely aliens, because that is extremely complex. For those who don't know it, there's a warning from aliens to humans, and it looks like it's directed to a body of humans, the way the information is laid out, the body that maybe knew exactly what was going on here. So I'm convinced that the phenomenon wanted an end game, but needed help along the way. And that matches John Romero's language, which is the reason there was a 10-year soft disclosure program, because when the aliens show up, and that's what I'm convinced, there's actually going to be a moment. And I've always known the aliens can't be here until they alter the world, they alter the planet. So there was always this idea that they were not coming down there, and I don't think humans will see them. We won't see them. I'm not convinced of it until after the change has occurred, which is a planet cataclysm, some type of event that will occur. And so all this picture is matching, right? Even from the cattle mutilators, keep stability until it's time to end the experiment. And so I think that that's the most critical part, is that there was a desire for stability, but giving and evolving your human species, so your humankind, so they can be warmed up to us, because we want to take a bunch of them. Not mentioned anywhere, but that's in my contact experiences, that there's a Noah's Ark scenario here where they're taking a bunch, which would be the experiencer phenomenon. And they plan to, merge with some of those people, and I don't know about the rest. But so, yeah, that's the picture that I have. And again, I'll be articulating and forming a lot of this in a very clear, succinct way on my channel, but giving it to you because it's lots of fun to do that.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And in that vein of kind of overall plan and disclosure kind of being slowly laid out, can you go into a little, like, before we wrap everything up, I just wanted to mention Disclosure Day. How did that affect you? Because I know that we were talking a lot personally between each other, and just how I know for myself, I had my precog and everything else started like ramping up since I've seen the movie, and kind of like this weird, like, as soon as I saw it, was like there's something shifted. But what has been your experience, and what do you think that is?
Yeah, I definitely had an increase of well, I think it validated my internal experience when I came out of the movie. Let's just talk about how I felt from the movie first. So the movie, I cried during it. So I related to the house scene, and like
That I was
Yeah.
I was pretty emotionless until that part, and then everything
Yeah.
just fell apart.
Yeah, it's being a contactee is hard. Being an experiencer is hard, and you have a personalized experience that no one can you can't share with. And even between us experiencers, we can share in when things are good and we can talk privately about it, but no one can really help us, right? I can't really help another person going through their experience because it will always be personalized, right? The entire thing is personalized. I can give some general wisdom, but I can't really be a therapist in that context because it's always the phenomenon is talking to someone directly, or they're working with someone, or the experience is so personalized, they can only deal with it themselves. And that's what I found. I guess you could say it's isolating. It's isolating to be an experiencer, even though there's other contactees and other experiencers. No one really shares in the same type of experiences as yourself. So here, in this movie, was the first time ever I felt someone had shared in my experience. Not saying Steven Spielberg did, but he made a movie that made me feel like someone was validating my experience on a grand, worldwide level. For the first time ever, someone was understanding my emotions on a grand level about what it felt like to, like the guy crying when I'm getting chills just thinking about it, in the house scene, and he's saying, "Don't do it, don't go down that road," and he's telling the Emily Blunt's character to not look at the memories, and for them, the children not to go into the house because it's terrifying. And that's like, I know that feeling, right? When the orbs were interacting with me in 2019, I'm like, whoa. I had feelings of like, don't do it, man. Don't do this. Like, don't go down that road. Like you just don't want this. And this is nasty and it's awful and there's too much going on here and I don't want to know about it. And so you have this emotional resistance, and yet you need to. So then you do it, and it's extremely emotional for you, and you can cry during it, but then you're crying in your bedroom by yourself, right? So here was a movie, captivating that feeling and that experience. And there was all these little tiny linkages in the movie, just thematically, the way the deer's eye, when he zeroes in on the deer's eye and it turns into the gray alien eye, is exactly my second contact event. The screen memory of the owl's eyes was the gray alien's eyes. So how the hell did Spielberg know that? It's just a very interesting, it had trigger effects. It had a lot of it was very powerful. So when I walked out of the movie, I actually felt someone had understood me fully for the first time, right? Like someone understood the struggles I go through in this kind of, in a very humanized, grand way, not because as experiencers and contactees, we're shoved aside, right? We're shoved aside in society. We're shoved aside by our loved ones or our friends or our family, and you're shoved aside, and most people don't want to hear about it. They think you're just trying to get over it, get the hell out of this so you can go back to normal reality. And you're really just pushed aside. And for the first time, you have a story that's saying, this is a part of the human experience. This is a part of you are a part of this. And so I walked out feeling validated. I walked out feeling heard. I walked out feeling, sure, not egotistically, but important or special, right? That not egotistically, but that something unique had occurred to me and I need to milk it, or I need to be okay. I need to be proud of it. I need to be okay with it. And then what that did as well too was it validated my subjective experiences. So when I was having intuitive moments, I all of a sudden was like, no, man, I'm really having this moment and I know it to be real. And so, yeah, I had this kind of like burst or boost of validation around my subjective experiences. And then I had a random synchronistic moment in my life where someone came into my life and they were, anyway, I was able to tune into them, and they were struggling, and so it was this kind of weird synchronistic moment where I had a real validation, and then about my subjective, not psychic, but just ability to feel people and read them at times, especially from a distance, especially if I don't know them, and then to be validated or confirm that someone is struggling or something, and then to help them in that process, or at least help them the best way that I could, not really knowing them, but I definitely was able to eventually talk with them. But that was just a beautiful, resolution or acknowledgement of that subjective reality that I have this kind of gift or this ability, and then it's there to help other people. And it was all facilitated for me by Disclosure Day. So it's really, it was, just, and of course, what that movie also does for me now too, is it is the stamp about, if you don't understand me, watch that movie. Right? If I'm too confusing for you, or this whole thing is nuts, or what I'm talking about sounds bonkers, watch that movie. Because how Emily Blunt's character behaves when she's overwhelmed with her psychic abilities is not uncommon how any experiencer behaves. Right? We kind of get flustered, right? We're overwhelmed and we're flustered by our own experience because you're dealing with things outside your brain. So you kind of get overwhelmed, and then people kind of get really people can get turned off by it. But what's happening is you're actually having an evolution occur, and so again, you had these kind of ways of bringing validation or bringing understanding to something extremely complex that is a human experience, the experiencer phenomenon. So that's my 2 cents there.
No, I think the description of it being it helping you just accept and feel seen, I think that's really validating and really important, especially that part of yourself that second guesses everything, especially when we're having these strange experiences. Like that's the common thing too, is like a lot of people assume as experiencers we're just innately going to believe anything. That's not the
I know, man.
It's not how
it's so dumb. It's so dumb. I know. And like, no human is like this, right? Like, no, even religious people, like, there's no world where the religious person just, I don't know, man. People, I know, out of nowhere, you have such a degraded logic. Like, everyone thinks you just are stupid and silly, and you believe a dream is alien contact. And anyway, I really relate to what you just said there.
It is like, and so to see somebody like definitely, especially Steven Spielberg, really captivate that experience in a holistic way. Well, first of all, I 100% believe he's an experiencer. Something is going on. Whether it was just really good information that he has, but I do think that on a director level, that you have to be intuitive to the subject you're describing, you're creating, you're trying to recreate. So I don't know, but when it comes to it definitely was an experiencer movie. And it's funny because anyone that I hear about like that are like, that was a dumb movie, they're like, okay, it's okay, it wasn't made for you. It was made for experiencers. And
but that matches Jacques Vallée's dimensions, right? It had a tendency to repulse people, which is exactly what the phenomenon does. Right? The phenomenon has a tendency to isolate experiencers and then from the rest of the society, and that's, as a movie, that's exactly what happened. It's like, again, it had a weird way of like, and it's almost like he knew how to do that, because there's certain moments that were too unrealistic for the average movie critic, and I can see that. I'm like, I get, when she's walking out of the military, eventually the military grabs her, right? And Emily Blunt's character, and she ends up using a psychic ability where she can read she can read them, and then she's able to say something personal about them, and the person is like, oh my God, they got all emotional. And of course, as an observer to that, you're like, that's going to not go over well by the critic, but I can see how that's very purposeful, like, because it really just agitates someone. They reject the movie, but then it's still laced with all this experiencer content that really hits the heart. So anyway, I'm adding to that, man. It's just a brilliant point that he had in that movie.
Ending of the movie, listen, that was 100% for experiencers. I felt that poke in the heart, listen, because that's really what it is. And when you're going off of that intuitive space as an experiencer, like, you realize that things happen to you, synchronicities line up, you connect with other experiencers, and we have group synchronicities, weird things happen. And the movie is really reflective to a T to that point. To the normal, like, everyday movie going person, they're going to view that and go, well, that didn't make a whole lot of sense. That's kind of a MacGuffin, or whatever, like, plot point. But when it comes to how it is to experience life with the phenomena, it really is that. And so, it's just, I agree. It was a beautiful film, and No, I remember going and seeing it, and I was like, like texting you, like, you gotta go see it.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, you had a bunch of stuff happen, and
Yeah.
I know the elder showed up.
She showed up going to the movie. Yeah, she showed up going to the movie. She was in the sky, flying around me, going to the movie. I know, it was brilliant. I just loved it so much. Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, so this stuff's gonna happen for sure. So that's just really awesome.
It's epic.
Always love our conversations off recording and in recording. You know, much love to you, brother, and like
you too,
always enjoy our what the phenomenon does, but also just your friendship. And so anyway, I want to be in full support of your channel and everything. So please let people know how they can get in contact with you. And then also, any upcoming interviews you might have or events.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, so Daniel, thanks for having me, buddy, and much love and luck on your channel. I'm so excited. There's another experiencer-led podcast. So, and you have you're doing a great job, and you've got a great frame of reference for everything. There's a reason I've been hanging out with you, or at least talking with you for so long, because you really got the mind and you know how to see things the way that I think is really effective here. So you're doing a great job, buddy, and I'm really excited for you to have your podcast. So my name is Jeff Selver. You can I got a book. It's got all the contact events in them. You can find that book and all my information at jeffselver.com, jeffselver.com. My book is The Rising and the Alien Plan to Build an Enlightened City on Earth. And from there at the bottom are all my links. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel. And I got it. Basically, I think I zero in mostly on my YouTube channel as the main medium that I use to get my information across. But I do make shorts that get onto Instagram and onto YouTube as well too, and Facebook as well too. So I got my Facebook channel where I do a lot of communication. That's and what's coming up? I'm just in research mode right now, so I'm really heavy into researching. I'm building a new kind of series for my channel again, as I normally do, which is focused on the 9th and 10th contact events. So I really want to bring them to life, as I really like to say it, and I have new revelations about both contact events. And then what the aliens talk to me about in that 10th contact event, I have very specific rabbit holes that I'm doing deep dives in, and we'll plan to make videos about those deep dives. And I got a couple things coming up. So Birdie, be on Birdie's channel, transdimensional mapping, and Grant Cameron as well too. So I'm really excited and feel very blessed to be a guest on both those channels. And that's I think that's the gist of it. Some other talk about some things that are not in fruition yet. And I've got presentations coming up for another Lightworkers and Starseeds channel, which is Crystal. Crystal. Crystal is doing a really good job over there. Actually, I really love her style, where she gets this kind of presentation focused and then brings people in. And so I'm building more presentations there, and then I get to bring them onto my own channel, which she really loves, and share all this information. So that's about it, man. I think that's on the horizon right now. So,
well, thank you so much, Jeff, again for joining me today. I'll make sure to put all the links to your channel down below, and please, everyone, go check out Jeff Selver's work, and we'll be definitely having him on a show again. So, thank you again, Jeff, for joining us today, and remember, everyone, the owls are watching.